case anyone somehow has been on another planet for the last couple of days. The race will start at 7 a.m. this morning. Once your body's embarked, then you can proceed directly to the pier itself. Needless to say, you'll be able to check your bikes, make those last-minute adjustments, put your water bottles in, plug your tires up, and ready to go.
The 13th Ironman triathlon is underway. The Ironman, quite possibly the toughest, most demanding single-day sporting event anywhere in the world. Consider what's ahead. 2.4 miles of swimming, 112 miles of riding the bike, and finally 26.2 miles of running, a full marathon. Now, when the Ironman was first held back in 1978, it was a struggle just to survive and to finish. But today, despite the brutal distances involved, the Ironman is very much a race.
The early Ironman events were held on Oahu, and they sent competitors splashing off into the unknown, wondering if they could finish, and wondering, too, what they might find as they explored the frontiers of human endurance. Some even feared the event could be dangerous, and for several years the athletes were checked for weight loss along the way. In 1981, the Ironman was moved to its present location on the Big Island of Hawaii, and the searing heat of the lava fields along the Kona coast made the race tougher still. One man, Dave Scott, emerged as the best. He seemed impervious to the heat, and his style was to dictate the pace. He won the Ironman the first time he raced it, and 5 more times after that. He has structured his life and the way he perceives himself around his domination of the Ironman.
I'm the guy they want to beat. I look at this event as, really as war with myself. I mean, I feel as though once I'm out there, there's no other race that draws out my physical talents as this one does.
No one knows better about Scott's talents than Mark Allen, who has twice managed to lead him near the end of the race, only to wind up like this. Allen has won virtually every major triathlon in the world except the Ironman. This was last year. Scott was sidelined due to injury, and Allen was the prohibitive favorite until 2 flats dropped him from contention.
My main goal, one, is to try and win, but in doing that, I want to be able to race the entire race, feel like I am in control of what's going on inside of my body. I don't want to have the course defeat me, and that's what I feel like has happened in the past. It's not so much Dave Scott has defeated me or Scott Tinley or whoever's come in ahead of me. It's always been the course, the elements, the wind, the humidity, and the distance under that sun for 8.5 hours. This year, that's what I would like to defeat.
1,286 men and women from 46 countries churning through the waters of Kailua Bay. Energy to burn for now, but it will ebb slowly away as this long day wears on. Scott and Allen are near the front.
Yes, back
into the sea. A reminder that the Hawaii of the Ironman is not, for the most part, the lush paradise of the travel posters. In fact, the harshness of the Kona coast reflects the essential reality of the Ironman, an event in which human beings push themselves and each other right to the edge. The wearing down process begins immediately, with the swimmers at close quarters to one another's thrashing feet and arms. The leaders here, swimming specialists who, in other years anyway, have faded later in the race. Swimming comprises only 10% of the total time of the race, but it is tactically important. For the favorites, whom we see in this pursuit pack, it is the first look at each other's race strategy. Dave Scott here, he's a former swimming coach, has Mark Allen right at his feet. Allen shadowing Scott, as he has in the past, conserving energy by swimming in Scott's wake. Further back among the leading men come the first of the women. Among them, last year's winner, Paula Newby-Frazer, with the orange cap. Quite possibly, there is no athlete in this race more suited to the rigors of the Ironman than Paula Newby-Frazer. In her rookie year 4 years ago, essentially untrained and with no expectations, she finished third, a natural endurance athlete, both in her physical makeup and in terms of temperament. She won the race on her second try, and last year, with her training by now focused on the Ironman, she won again and finished a startling 11th overall with a time that would have beaten the men's record as recently as 1984. She was born 27 years ago in Zimbabwe, in the southern part of Africa, and today she retains her citizenship there and the feeling that her roots are there. This is where she lived, the city of Harare, formerly Salisbury, Rhodesia, today the capital of Zimbabwe. From childhood, Paula was involved in competitive situations, in swimming, ballet, karate, and after college, when a friend urged her to enter a triathlon, she won it, which led to the Ironman, which led to a move to San Diego, which led to a life committed to triathlon, where her excellence makes her a rival for even the top male athletes.
I think one of the most common things that has happened now is a lot of the male competitors sort of look to me and go, "You're not going to beat me." You know what I mean? It's kind of stirred up a lot of the men more than anything else, I think.
Do you enjoy stirring them up a little bit like that?
No, I don't like to stir them up. In fact, whenever they say, "You better not pass me," I go, "Don't worry, I'm not going to." Meantime, in the back of my mind, I'm going, "Yeah, I'm coming to get you."
Paula riding with her boyfriend Paul Huddle, also a top triathlete. Typically she trains alone and with great intensity, a regimen that led to last year's Ironman win, possibly the finest performance ever by a female endurance athlete.
It was just one of those days that probably maybe only happens once in a lifetime, and you know, I have to be in the, myself or anybody else for that matter, has to be in the right physical state and the right mental state to achieve that. And I don't know if it'll come again, but I think it can be done.
More than 1,200 bikes massed on the pier in the foreground, waiting for their riders to emerge from the water. And here they come, the leaders of the swim in a sprint. Wolfgang Dietrich of West Germany on the right, American Rob Mackel on the left, racing for the $1,500 bonus awarded to the winner of each segment. Dietrich out first, followed by Mackel as they head for the shower area where they can rinse off the salt before they change for the bike segment. But they run right through the showers. There are no timeouts in the Ironman. These transitions are very much part of the race. They pick up the bags which contain their biking clothes and run on into the changing area. Bill Penn, third. Remember, if history is any guide, many of these top swimmers are specialists who are not expected to do as well in the biking and running. Wolfgang Dietrich heads for his bike. One of the volunteers holds it ready for him. Dietrich's time for the 2.4-mile swim, 48 minutes, 13.9 seconds. The first of the favorites coming out of the water, Dave Scott. After missing the race last year, it must be good to be back in the thick of it. Scott through the showers. That's Mark Allen right behind, followed by more of the top men. Dietrich, this is just his second Ironman. Scott, as always, very fast in the transitions. These are not everyday bikes. Each one costs roughly $3,000. Here comes a barefoot Mark Allen. His shoes are already attached to the pedals. Scott underway. Allen is undefeated in the last 9 triathlons he has run, including the World Championship in Avignon, France. The leading women starting to come ashore. Kirsten Hansen, she was third last year. Now Paula. couple, mother of 3. She wins other triathlons, but in 2 tries here, she has suffered terrible muscle cramping. Paula is only 3 minutes behind Scott and Alan. They, in turn, are 3 minutes behind Dietrich. Good luck, Paula. 112 miles of biking to go. The route of the bike course is along the coast of Hawaii, the southernmost and biggest of the islands Captain Cook discovered back in 1778. Like the other islands, Hawaii consists of volcanic mountains. Mauna Loa, still an active volcano, is on the right. Mauna Kea, almost 14,000 feet high, is on the left. The bike course runs north, slicing through lava fields. Rolling hills are followed by a steady climb to the turnaround point at the tiny village of Hawaii. The return trip is downhill and fast at first, and then it's back to the flatter terrain of the lava fields, where the average rainfall is less than 1 inch per year. And in those lava fields, on the highway they call the Queen K, Wolfgang Dietrich with the sun coming up on his right. Dietrich's lead over Scott and Alan, 3 minutes at the end of the swim, is down to 2.5. More of the grueling Hawaii shimmers on the Queen K, and a pack of the best triathletes in the business chase this man, Wolfgang Dietrich. Dietrich's lead shrinks with each mile. He is now just 2 minutes, 20 seconds ahead of the chase pack. But this is the traditional pattern of the Ironman. The top swimmers seem to evaporate on the Queen K like drops of water on a skillet. Just over a mile behind Dietrich, Scott.
Dave was forced to drop out of the 1988 race with a last-minute knee injury. He has vowed to win his Ironman title back. Of the 9 races that Alan has won this year, he has beaten Scott twice, both at half Ironman distances. Or maybe an aerodynamic-looking Kenny Glah has the right stuff today. He was 30 years ago. One thing is certain, both Alan and Glah determined to keep Scott in sight.
Leading the women's race is 27-year-old Lisa Lottie. As Paula Newby-Frazer was in 1985, Lisa is an Ironman rookie. But while Paula came to the race with virtually no training, Lisa has trained with the best, Paula Newby-Frazer.
Working out with Paula the last, 3 weeks, I think helped both of us during the bike. But what really helped me working out with her and seeing how she trains is how she takes her easy and hard days. And like I used to train, I go out and hammer every day on the bike. I want to go fast every day. And I don't ease off. I pretty much overtrain myself.
The complex challenge of the Ironman, and someone who has mastered it, Paula Newby-Frazer.
Jan Ripple in the striped suit defeated Paula Newby-Frazer each of the 3 times they competed in shorter course events this past year. She and Kirsten Hansen in the white helmet behind Jan trail Lisa Lottie by a half mile at the 20-mile mark. Hansen has a victory and a loss in shorter events versus the Iron Woman from Zimbabwe, who was out of the water slightly behind them, but is right now beside Kirsten Hansen.
With the leaders already well into the bike segment, competitors continue to scream out of the water. At the pier, Donna De Verona.
Over a decade of Ironman competition has wiped out the notion that swimmers can't bike and bikers can't run. It's been a proving ground for those that have been able to master all 3 disciplines. And it's a unique event that embraces everyone, young and old, male and female, compete side by side. The ultimate accomplishment here is to finish. Especially for those who have failed before, like 49-year-old Dick Hoyt, who until last year's Ironman never failed to finish any race. An amazing accomplishment considering the unique circumstances of the Hoyt entry. The vest, a competitive lifeline to a raft. In it is Dick's 27-year-old son Ricky. And like any entrant, they must complete the swim in 2 hours and 15 minutes, or like last year's disappointment, will be disqualified from the entire event. Dick Hoyt married his high school sweetheart in 1961. He was 20, she was 19. He was captain of the football team and she was a cheerleader. But they were hardly prepared for life's cruelty when their first child was born with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. He suffered brain damage, cerebral palsy.
I was mad. I was really mad. It was not the baby that I dreamed about. It was not the baby that I planned on. It was like some other baby. And at first I wanted him to die so I didn't have to deal with it. And kind of an external force would just take Rick out of my life, and I wouldn't have to deal with something that wasn't right. And we went to the specialist, and I will never forget that day. He was cold, he was hard. He basically said to us, your child has cerebral palsy. He's going to bring you nothing but grief. You should just forget about him, put him in an institution, and go and on and have other kids.
We said, no, there's no way we're going to put him in an institution. So we're going to we took Rick home, and we said we're going to bring Rick up just like we would any other child. And this is what we have done.
They took Ricky swimming and rock climbing and canoeing along with their 2 younger sons who were born able-bodied. And they learned that in the nonverbal quadriplegic body of their oldest child, there was a healthy, active mind. Rick learned to communicate using a computer, spelling out with excruciating patience the words he'd like to say. He speaks here through an interpreter, his friend and aide.
My greatest fear is not being respected as a person with an okay mind. People see me and assume that I'm not smart.
Rick is now a junior at Boston University studying special education. He shares an apartment with a friend, and other students assist Rick with his personal care and schoolwork.
Being disabled is the only thing I've ever known, so it's hard to make a comparison to being able-bodied. Sometimes it's very difficult because I have to depend so much on others, but at least I have choices, and I make my own decisions about how my life will be.
He made one of those decisions at the age of 16 when he asked his father to enter a 5K race with him. He knew exactly what he wanted.
We got that picture of Rick, the first race he ever ran, and he's got the biggest smile you ever saw in his life. It goes from one end of his head to the other, you know, and he's almost coming out of the chair. You could see it. And then that night, after that very first race, he went home on his computer and wrote, Dad, when I'm running, it feels like I'm not even handicapped.
The 5K led to a 10K, then to marathons, and now triathlons. Along the way, Dick Hoyt has become an outstanding age group athlete, and he could compete easily without Rick, but he won't.
He drives me, and there's just something that happens to me when I get behind that chair and start pushing him, and we just can go faster. I don't want to do it on my own. I have no desire to do it. Not at all.
Why not?
Because I've never done one on my own. It's Rick to get me into it. Why should I go and do it on my own? I just don't have no desire to go out there and do it. It wouldn't be the same. I wouldn't know what to do. What am I going to do with my arms?
Unlike last year, they finished the swim with time to spare, 1 hour and 54 minutes. The Hoyts have earned their spot here in the triathlon, having completed 10 Boston marathons and 2 other triathlons of the Ironman distance. There's no special treatment for the Hoyts. Dick alone must transfer his son to a specially designed bike. He must strap him in carefully, making sure he's balanced so there are no falls on the steep hills ahead. For Judy Hoyt, Ricky's mom and a champion of the disabled, this is a victory. She believes the disabled and able-bodied should participate in the same activities and share the same risks.
Years ago, when the first Ironman was held, it was a frontier of sorts, a race that was about pushing past the limits of the human body. Watching the Hoyts, it seems not much has changed. 9:45 on this morning of the Ironman. It's almost 3 hours into the race. Hawaiian legends have always celebrated speed along this coast. Makoa, a courier of King Kamehameha, was said to be so fast he could carry a fish from Hilo on the far side of the island to Kona without having it die. Today's Ironmen don't carry fish, but they do carry the dream of victory, and each year only one of them is fast enough to keep that dream alive through the long day to the finish. West Germany's Wolfgang Dietrich, still leading 45 miles into the bike segment, knows that although he has done much already, there is much left to do. Mike Adamley is with him.
Not too much wind today, huh?
No wind. It's all right. Maybe in 2 hours. We will see.
How's your stamina at this point? Pretty good?
Yeah. It's very good today. Good swim. Not very good, but a good swim, and the bike is all right.
Are you aware of how close the rest of the pack, Dave Scott, Mark Allen, are behind you?
How far?
Yes. Are you aware of that?
Yeah. I know. I'm not aware of. It doesn't matter. I make my race, and we will see.
And what we see is the chase pack closing inexorably on Dietrich. 2 minutes, 15 seconds back now. Note that they are spaced apart. The rules forbid drafting. Scott still shadowed by Mark Allen.
After training her body for 6 hours a day for a full year, 35 miles into the cycling phase, Jan Ripple's bike breaks down. Precious minutes lapse before a mechanic can fix the problem. Paula Newby-Frazer, up in the lead, pushes towards Javi, but she's not alone on her odyssey. She and Kirsten Hansen have been eyeing each other for miles for signs of weakness. The slight breeze has been coming across the athletes' bodies, and for the competitors, it's the gentlest wind conditions in 5 years. The Queen K Highway, however, was not treating Lisa Lottie in a royal fashion. She is falling back, and for such a strong cyclist, it's still early in the race. A headache is a unique problem to have less than halfway through this event. 2 years ago, while training on her bike, she was hit by a truck and suffered a fractured skull.
In cycling, Dick Hoyt's job is the toughest. The specially designed bike is heavy, weighing 58 pounds. Rick weighs 90. Every time Rick needs water, he communicates the only way he can, a wave of the arm. And this can happen at any time and on any grade of hill. Dick's challenge? To balance the bike, reach for the bottle, find Rick's mouth, and keep pedaling. He must also remember to take in liquids and pace himself too. There's still over 100 miles to go on the bike.
Ahead of the Hoyts, Wolfgang Dietrich approaches the turnaround at Javi. His lead had been slipping away, but over the last few miles, which are steadily uphill, he has been gaining time back in big chunks.
If Dietrich was just a flash in the pan, he would have been overtaken miles ago, but if anything, he's gotten stronger. And Sam, for the first time in this race, the West German triathlon champion, will get a clear picture as to where he stands as he passes Mark Allen and Dave Scott on the way back to the Queen K.
3 minutes go by, and here comes the chase pack into Javi. Scott, Allen, and the others have just had their first look at Dietrich. And you have to wonder, are they thinking, is it time to stop racing each other and start worrying about Dietrich? From Javi, the course is all downhill for 15 miles. They'll reach over 45 miles an hour. Then it's back across the lava and on into town. Wolfgang Dietrich has been leading this race for more than 3 hours, but there is still half the bike course ahead of him and the marathon. K Highway, German Wolfgang Dietrich alone in a cocoon of concentration. Dietrich lost a little on the downhills from Javi. Now he's again making it back. His lead, 3 minutes.
Question, will anyone dare to make a break to catch the West German? Mike Pigg was second here in Kona a year ago. Always an outstanding swimmer, Rob Mackel has improved dramatically in the bike. Kenny Glau made a brief break from the pack coming down from Javi, but he's been reeled back in since then. Mark Allen talked about patience before the race. So far, he's resisted the temptation to put the hammer down, as has Dave Scott. Apparently, Dietrich's lead not yet deemed threatening. Can the West German keep up this pace? He has had the lead from the very beginning. And what's truly remarkable, he's been racing alone. Unlike Scott and Allen, he's had no one to gauge his performance with, just his own inner clock.
Dietrich is 80 miles into the race, the point Dave Scott says the Ironman really begins. If Scott is right, then Dietrich begins with a 3-minute lead, and his pace is fast. He's roughly 9 minutes ahead of Scott's record pace.
For Paula Newby-Frazer, her weekly effort of 7 miles of swimming, 200 miles of cycling, and 60 miles of running is paying off. Although cycling better than ever before, Kirsten Hansen's instincts tell her she's pushing her 5'3", 102-pound frame too hard. And 75 miles into the bike phase, she backs off. Newby-Frazer is now alone at the front.
I'm doing okay right now.
Did you put a third trying to pull away from Kirsten?
Nope. I maintain the same pace. Is she back there? I guess she's gone.
Hawaiian volcanoes often revolt against the inner pressures of the Earth's core. Lisa Lottie's body appears to be revolting also. She struggles badly and is now 7 miles behind. An athlete's iron, potassium, salt, and fluids must be at their maximum entering this event. Lottie is fading so quickly that one or more of these nutrients may be below par. 60% of our body weight is water, and it is critical during the race itself to replace the potassium, iron, salt, and fluids which burn off so quickly in this 100-degree heat. Doctors say that if the appropriate nourishment is not taken in this event, that the athlete would be forced to stop 4 hours into the competition and would have lost by then 10% of their body.
Finally, a goal in sight, Ricky and Dick approach Hawaii in the turnaround point, aware that the uphill cycling battles are almost behind them. To prepare for this event, the Hoyts have been competing every weekend for a year. And while Rick was in school, Dick trained alone, pushing a 100-pound bag of cement in Ricky's biking and running chairs, all to challenge the Queen K Highway. But as most triathletes will tell you, no first-timer can anticipate the heat, the monotony, and the unforgiving hills.
The Ironman means different things to different people, but it cannot mean more to anyone than to this father and his son. Dietrich of West Germany has led most of the way since the start at 7 o'clock this morning. First came the swimming, 2.4 miles in Kailua Bay, then the biking, 112 miles. Dietrich now is at the Kona Surf Hotel, where after a quick change of clothes, he will begin the running segment of the race, a marathon, 26.2 miles. Dietrich has been pursued relentlessly by 6-time Ironman winner Dave Scott, and Scott, in turn, has been unable to shake off Mark Allen. These two sweeping down the final hill toward the Kona Surf Hotel as Dietrich prepares to lead. The last miles of the bike course have seen Dietrich's 3-minute lead reduced to roughly 2 minutes, and Scott and Allen have broken away from a pack with which they rode throughout most of the bike segment. From 6 contenders, there are now just 3.
Dietrich's best time in the marathon, in fact his only time in the marathon, was in the Ironman 2 years ago, 3 hours and 48 minutes. As Dave Scott and Mark Allen head for the transition area, their personal bests in the marathon over an hour faster than Dietrich's. Dave Scott and Mark Allen are triathlon's definitive rivalry. In previous Ironman battles, Allen has tried to break Scott with his speed, only to break himself. He has learned from his mistakes. Today, instead, he has matched Scott mile for mile.
No one, not Scott or Allen, nor even Dietrich himself, thought he would be leading this late in the race. Dave Scott's pursuit begins. It should be noted that he has never been passed for good by anyone on an Ironman run, and that this apparently choppy style, which comes from running toed out, is highly effective. Mark Allen with his classic fluid style, following Scott. The course they are about to run on this third and final leg of the Ironman begins along the shore on Ali'i Drive, zigzags through Kailua, then heads out the Queen K into the lava fields to a turnaround. Then it's back into town, where they finish next to the little beach where they began early this morning. Dietrich on Ali'i Drive. He had seemed invulnerable on the bike. Not so now. Closing in with each stride, Scott and Alan. The hunted and the hunters. Three miles into the marathon. Dietrich has led this race for over 5 hours. Scott and Alan blow by him as if he never existed. Where there were 3, there are now 2. And Mark Allen, previously content behind Dave Scott, has pulled out abreast of him. The race this sport has waited for has begun.
Well, that Hawaii triathlon doesn't get
Man triathlon, but her pace to this point is 1.5 minutes behind what it was last year when she won the women's race and finished 11th overall. Possibly the strongest performance ever by a woman in endurance sports.
Sam, she fractured her arm in a fall from her bike several months ago and was forced to stop swimming and biking for close to a month. So she focused on her running, and now it may pay.
Dave Scott and Mark Allen have covered a little over 4 miles now. They're averaging approximately 6 minutes per mile, which would put them in the vicinity of a 2-hour and 40-minute marathon, something that's never been done before to the Ironman.
The natural rivalry between Scott and Allen is heightened because they are so fundamentally different. They are at different stages of their lives. They are different in temperament and lifestyle, different in the way they train. Scott is from Davis, California, a rural farming community to the west of Sacramento. Near his home are stretches of road almost as solitary as the Queen K. Here, Scott is content to train alone, to set his own pace, just as he always has in the Ironman. By contrast, Mark Allen lives by the beach in San Diego, in the epicenter of the professional triathlon community, a world in which super fitness is the ideal and in which a compulsive desire to exercise is considered normal. Mark Allen needs this victory to fulfill the life he has devoted so totally to this sport. But to win, he must take something from Dave Scott, Scott's identity almost. Scott's job is to stop him.
See, I want to see.
Come on, Mark.
Yeah, all right, guys. See, right on. See, catch me, run.
As Paula Newby-Frazer begins her marathon, a thin cloud cover drops the temperature into the 80s. Still stiff from the bike, Kirsten Hansen is now 3 minutes behind Newby-Frazer. Tragedy has struck Lisa Lottie. In a dehydrated state on her bike, she has crashed into a parked car.
Her boyfriend is number 8 on the race course.
He's right here.
He has medical history for you if you need it. She has fast-foot neurological problems.
No, I can't do the race.
Oh, okay.
You guys know what we've been through once?
I thought you said you were going to
you know the story?
The story Lisa's boyfriend, top triathlete Todd Jacobs, is referring to was a cycling accident 2 years before when Lisa was hit by a truck and fractured her skull. Paula Newby-Frazer runs by unaware that her former training partner has suffered a broken neck. The accident was caused by an abnormally low salt level that left Lisa in a dazed state. Fortunately, there was no paralysis, but she'll have to wear a neck brace for at least 5 months. If she wishes, she should be able to compete again.
The leaders with 14 miles to go. A desolate scene, evoking the sense of loneliness inherent in this sport in which the long hours of training require such self-absorption. Underscoring this, it is interesting to note that Mark Allen and Dave Scott have not exchanged a word since this race began. Scott and Allen are still together. 4 miles to go.
Do it!
That was Anna, Dave's wife.
Hey guys, hang in there.
Guys, go.
With neither man giving in, Dave and Mark have driven each other to another plateau. They are once again averaging an incredible 6 minutes per mile. It is clear that Scott's 3-year-old Ironman record will be broken. The only question, who will break it?
Ice in your head.
Ice,
That's smart. Keep it up.
Go. Right on. Right on. There you go. Right on.
In running long distances, athletes are fond of describing their inner focus. They monitor their breathing and heart rate. The rhythmic cadence of their running enhances relaxation. At aid stations, that rhythm can be disrupted, causing precious energy to be wasted.
Keep it up. Keep it up. Water. You want a cup?
Water. Just open the top up.
Come on, man. Let's do it, Dave.
Open the top up on me.
Miles to go. This is the final uphill on the course. Exactly into the race. Allen looking back. Allen has made a move and Scott appears unable to answer it. In 1982, Mark Allen couldn't finish. In 83, he was third. In 84, fifth. In 86 and 87, he was second. In 88, fifth. And finally now, in his 7th Ironman, for Mark Allen, the long quest for victory is over. Just less than a minute later, Dave Scott on a Leahy Drive, the scene of triumph for him in other years. Today, things are different. With the men's race in the Ironman over, Allen and Scott top the standings. Mark Allen's share of the prize money, $20,000.
Mark, this has been a long time in coming, and Dave Scott, before the race, said he was going to make you pay for it.
It's taken 8 years and a lot of hard races. Dave set a pace out there that was just incredible on the run. I didn't know how we were going to keep it up. Mile after mile, just instead of getting slower, I got faster. But coming into town about mile 24, I had a little bit extra, and I thought, if I don't do it now, I may never do it.
Many before the race predicted Dave Scott because he'd won so many times, and they've always said, can Mark do this? Is it physical or is it psychological? I guess you put those doubts away today, even within yourself.
Well, I wouldn't have bet against him either. You know, he's got the track record to prove that he's a great racer out here. And really, when you think about an 8-hour event and I beat him by, you know, maybe a minute or something, that's essentially the same time.
Dave Scott won his first Ironman in the infancy of this event a decade ago, and he has been known as the man ever since. In a sense, anyone that wins this race merely borrows his title for a while. It should be noted that at age 35, Dave Scott has shattered his own previous Ironman record by over 18 minutes. And with this stunning performance, Scott has given Mark Allen something only he could give, the knowledge that he has beaten the very best. For Paula Newby-Frazer, there are no real rivals except herself and the record she set a year ago, a record people said was a fluke she could not repeat.
With a 20-minute lead and 4 miles to go, isn't it ironic that it is coming down to a painful toenail that might stand in the way of Paula Newby-Frazer breaking her own Ironman record? While Dave Scott and Mark Allen were able to draw on each other's energy to set their record, Paula Newby-Frazer has just herself.
The final 150 yards, the record within reach. From here, she can see the clock. She's got it. After 9 hours of racing, Paula Newby-Frazer has broken her own record by just 5 seconds. This is her third Ironman win in 5 tries, and she is only 27 years old. For this remarkable athlete, how many more victories are to come?
55 minutes after Paula Newby-Frazer finished the marathon, Dick and Ricky Hoyt are completing the bike. They are 35 minutes ahead of the disqualification time.
Okay, we'll just hold the bike. No sweat. Got the bike? Hey, we're glad you made it. You know, all right. Wants to open the way to go. What's his name? Rick. Good job, Rick. We're glad you're here. You're on time. Yeah, buddy. You're on time, buddy. Woo! You're on time, man. All right.
Dick and his son Rick, a victim of cerebral palsy, have been on the course for 10 hours. When Ricky was younger, Dick Hoyt had difficulty coming to terms with his son's disability. But when they started racing together 11 years ago, Dick had to learn how to feed, diaper, and care for Rick on his own. It was the turning point in both their lives. At 49, Dick Hoyt is in fabulous physical condition, but without the inspiration of his quadriplegic son, he feels there would be no reason to compete. In other events, Ricky has worried about his dad's zealous devotion, that maybe he pushes himself too hard. If Ricky could put it into words now, he'd tell his dad, pace yourself. Finishing here is the main thing.
"27 years ago, when Rick Hoyt was born, the Hoyt family began the long journey which has led to this day and to this moment. Along the way, this family has faced reality squarely and through love, has transformed a life of deprivation into a life of possibility. Fate has denied much to Rick Hoyt, but today he is experiencing what few of us ever will, finishing this race they call the Ironman.
What an incredible athletic achievement.